Okay. So I call this meeting to order. This is the January 31st, 2024 meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Barnes.
Here.
Delgado.
Here.
Fasella.
Present.
Hannon.
Here.
Nudo.
Yes.
Ula.
Yes.
Chaplin.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. We need to approve the agenda.
Seconded.
Did somebody say second? Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we approve the agenda as distributed. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. Motion carries. Audience participation. Okay.
Thank you for helping me earlier, because I would have embarrassed myself.
Okay. May I have a little preliminary speech here? If you would like to speak, please approach the podium and state your name and address. This is an opportunity to make a statement to the Board of Trustees as a whole. We don't answer questions. We do like to hear your opinions. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less.
Okay, I'm glad I timed myself at home then. I'm ready whenever you guys are. Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Rocknowski, and I am from Mohammed, and I'm here to discuss a new bus stop for MTD. I recently had an appointment at Carl on Curtis and overheard a mother and her small daughter, who was about 5, speaking with one of the nurses. She went on to say, "I almost canceled my daughter's appointment." The nurse, perplexed, asked why, and her response made me cry. "We take the bus. We got dropped off and had to walk the rest of the way here. So that begs the question, why have you not put a bus stop here?" Carl on Curtis is the busiest clinical facility. It was built in 2008, almost 16 years ago, while Carl at the Fields was built in 2018, 6 years ago. So what's the difference between the two? Bus stops were immediately installed following the completion of Carl at the Fields. So what is the excuse for not putting in the bus stops? I've heard everything from lack of funding, extra training, longer routes, it's just a clinic, it's not in our district, it's not safe, everything. But I haven't heard one reason why we should, only reasons why we shouldn't. There are 3 bus stops close to Carl on Curtis. Curtis and Winestone, 1 mile, a 22-minute walk. Madison-Windsor, 1.4 miles, a 29-minute walk. And Woodfield and Curtis, 1.5 miles, or a 32-minute walk. According to the CDC, a temperature of 32 degrees or lower causes hypothermia in less than 15 minutes. Again, let me reiterate, 15 minutes. Whereas 82 degrees or higher causes heat stroke in less than 15 minutes. For the past year, you've pushed people to walk people in dangerous conditions. I get what you're thinking. They could just take Uber or Lyft to work. They could, but that costs money. I drive for Uber and Lyft, and I know that Carl employees will spend between $18 and $20 to travel to Carl and Curtis. So traveling to and from the clinic would cost between $36 and $40 a day, which means that would cost between $180 to $240 per week, or $720 to $960 per month, compared to purchasing a $30 or $90 bus pass. We can all agree that purchasing a bus pass would be less expensive than taking an Uber or Lyft. I'd like you all to close your eyes and visualize a healthcare worker. Assume they do not own a car and must rely solely on public transportation. Imagine them traveling through snowstorms, blistering heat, rainstorms, and alone by themselves in the dark. Now imagine that nurse is your daughter. Imagine that nurse is your son, your loved ones, your family, your friends. Would you be okay with them doing what you're asking these healthcare workers and patients to do? If the answer is no, then you know not having a stop there is morally wrong. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to present to the board? Carl, did you want to say something? I know we don't answer questions, and that was sort of a question.
Sure. I can just give a quick refresher to the board. It probably would be worthwhile to why we don't serve the Carl Clinic on Curtis and Mattis. One of the quotes I heard was that, well, it's only a clinic. We certainly have never said that, and I am as positive as I could be that Carl has never said anything like that, so I don't know where that came from. We are legally restricted from annexing that parcel of land into our district boundaries. It is not eligible for annexation. And so while we have attempted to figure a path of annexation to it, there is no legal one. And so alternatively, we gave a proposal several years ago to Carl that we could provide service if they participated in paying for it. And I'm not authorized to speak for Carl, so I can't give any reasons why, but they declined to do that at the time, and presumably they had reasons. So we have to, we're required to recover our expenses if we provide service outside of our district boundaries, and we weren't able to have an agreement with Carl to pay for those services. And then outside of that, we're legally restricted. They do not meet the legal definition of an annexable property into the district. So for the time being, we can only provide ADA service, which we do. So anyone who is eligible for ADA service can use that to get to the clinic, but fixed route bus service, we're just not, you know, I mean, I guess it sounds like an excuse, but we have to comply with the law, and we're going to comply with the law, and so we cannot annex, and so we cannot provide service unless the costs are recovered. I do think, and I spoke to the speaker a little before the beginning of the meeting, don't know if this is much hope, but I do think that there is some hope that there will be a development that will be on the southwest corner of Madison Curtis in the not too distant future. And once that happens and that parcel is no longer taxed as farmland, but becomes a developed taxable parcel, that then creates an eligible legal path for us to annex the Carl parcel on the southeast side of that intersection. So I don't know when that will happen. We've had little flurries of activity with the city of Champaign on occasion talking about that. There is a developer that's interested in that and has done some work on it. So I think that there's some hope that that could happen in the future. Whether that's a year from now or 5 years from now, I just have no way of speaking into that right now. But essentially, that's kind of a summary of where we are.
Okay, thank you. Phil?
I might just throw this out there because I have a feeling there's people on the digital audience that would be wondering. This particular Carl property is taxable property, so they're paying real estate taxes on it, because otherwise you'd say, well, if they're annexed, they wouldn't pay taxes anyway. But in this case, they do pay taxes on that parcel. So it is a both legally relevant and financially relevant point. I'm not sure.
Bill, just to clarify, they're not paying taxes to the transit district.
Right, but if it were annexed into our district, it would be taxable property, unlike, say, the main hospital.
Correct.
So people think, oh, all of Carl is non-taxable, where there's a mixture of taxable and non-taxable parcels. This particular parcel does get a tax bill, so it's a relevant discussion. This is something I've poked at over the years. Don't think that this is falling on deaf ears, because it definitely is something that bothers everybody. It might be worth kicking things around with Carl and adding this to a future agenda to see if we can brainstorm on some other ways to address it. I mean, I would hope we're not just talking to a brick wall with Carl. It can't be a substantial amount of money. The whole tax bill for the entire parcel is $22,000 a year.
I've had a conversation with them as recently as June of 2023. Jay Rank, our operations director, and I met with the chief operating officer, the new chief operating officer, and their real estate person. And so we had a conversation about it. When you say everybody, I don't know exactly how you phrased it, everybody's interested in it or everybody's bothered that they don't have service, that is universally true. Everybody at MTD would like to provide service there, and everybody that I've ever talked to at Carl is interested in having us provide service there. That is a universal truth. It's just, we have legal issues and we have financial issues, and sometimes those are insurmountable.
Comment,
Any?
just
Oh,
a brief
Bruce?
comment. I didn't like it when they moved out there. It just creates sprawl and all these kinds of problems of access. You have to have a car to get there.
Okay. Alan, you have your finger poised.
The only thing I would say is to Carl's attention about this, I mean, not this Carl, but Carl Hospital. I do know, having interfaced with CNAs and nurses, that transportation is a huge, huge problem and a huge, huge expense. And I think Carl would do well to improve their absenteeism and to take that into consideration. So I agree with Phil, if you could maybe resurrect the conversation in earnest and renegotiate their thought process on this, because it is a good thing to do.
Okay. Any other persons wishing to speak to the board? Okay, so let's move on to the next item, which is the approval of the minutes of the open session of our last meeting, December 6, 2023. Do I have a motion?
I move we approve these.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes from the board meeting open session on December 6, 2023. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no. The motion carries. Have we got any communications? Nope, not from the clerk, not from anybody. Okay. Managing Director's report.
All right, thank you. I guess first, at the last meeting, we had this whole to-do and announcement that it was Brad's and Margaret's last meeting, and then here is Margaret. Thank you.
Bad pennies always turn up.
You said it, not me. Thank you, Margaret, for filling in. Your seat was not filled by the county board yet, and so as vice chair, you were able to run the meeting until the board leadership positions take place in a few minutes. But I appreciate you sticking around for another month and helping us out. Along those lines, Brad Dial, his seat, we did get a new appointment, and so we have our new trustee, Sharif Ullah, who this is his first meeting, and I just would like to welcome Sharif. I've actually known Sharif for several years. He used to work at the Regional Planning Commission and did work for the Metropolitan Planning Organization, QOTS, and so he is a transportation engineer, and so he knows transit, and he actually does consulting now for other transit agencies, and he knows the world and the industry in which we operate. So I think he's going to be a great addition and resource for the board. Sharif, I don't know if you want to say anything or. I don't want to put you on the spot, but.
No, thank you so much. And I'm very excited to be part of this. Although I look younger, but I've been a resident of Champaign-Urbana for almost 20 years. And I'm a big advocate for transit. And I believe CU-MTD has contributed positively for this community for many years. And also for many years in the future, it has tremendous prospect. And I'm just glad that I'll be a small part of it in the future. Thank you.
Yes, welcome.
Thanks, Sharif. And then just real briefly, I sent an email to everybody, but I'll do it publicly. Beth Brunk, our longtime board clerk, is going to be retiring, and so we've hired her replacement, Brittany Meeker, who is here today. And Beth is still staying on for a while to train Brittany and just introduce her to the world of MTD. So thank you, Beth, for sticking around, and welcome, Brittany. Okay, and with that, I will move on. In your board packet, we have statistical data for both November and December. As you recall, we didn't have a board meeting in November. We had a combined November-December meeting in early December, but it's early enough that we don't have time to compile all the November data. So I've got both months in the board packet, but I'm only going to go through the most recent month, December. So if you have questions about November, please feel free to ask, but I'm just going to present on the December stats. So in December of 2023, there were 593,359 rides. That's a 6.5% increase from last December. And then our ridership year-to-date comparison, the ridership in December of 23 is up 11.9% above that point in time in the previous fiscal year. So the growth is still continuing, and you can see in the next slide a string of Decembers going back to 2019, pre-pandemic. You can see what our December ridership was, and then we plummeted in 2020, and we're stair-stepping back. And as Bruce has noted, it's not a linear growth, but it is growth, and we are getting back. December was not as strong a recovery as some of the other months, but recovering nonetheless.
Carl, I'm making a prediction
Oh,
that we will reach, because of that linear growth, we'll reach the 2019 level early 2025. Approximately this time in 2025.
I'm going to hold you to that, and I'm going to hold you responsible if we don't make it. That would be great. That actually, I think, would be a good recovery. You know, one of the reasons why our recovery has slowed is because we still don't have 100% of our service out on the street, and by that time, we will have, I believe, several months of being back to full service before that. So I think that is a very real potential that we could be back to pre-pandemic levels at that point in time. So I'm with you. Okay, moving on to revenue. December 2023 operating revenue was 17.2% above December of 2022, and year-to-date operating revenue was 21.3% above FY 2023. Expenses, the December operating expenses were 9.5% above December 2022, and year-to-date operating expenses were 10.8% above FY 2023. And the year-to-date revenue and expenses, we have operating revenues that are $1.5 million above budget, and operating expenses were almost $3 million below budget. So with that, I would like to ask, hopefully I get my page numbers correct. Alan, a couple of months ago, you asked for a different kind of board report. And so for the last 2 months, we've given you the old report and a new one that I think has the information that you asked for. And so I just want to ask the board, which version of the report would you like to see going forward? So if you want to look at the December reports, the older version of the report is on page 33, and the new version of the report is on page 55. So let me flip to those pages and I can kind of walk you through the difference. Page 33, just looking at that page, but of course it travels through the whole report. What this does is it compares the variance column, so the percentage of change, compares the, in this case, the December 2023 and the December 2022 months. And so you see the percentage of difference between those months of, no, that's not right. It compares it to the budget. So it compares the December 2023 to the December 2023 budget. And so the variance, if you just look at full adult fares, that's a 15.7% difference between the budget and the actual number. If you go to page 55, the variance gives you what I started to tell you, the actual variance between December of 2022 and December 2023, which I think is what you were asking for, right, Alan?
And the reason being is the budget is so, it's got so much variance in it. For example,
But Alan, can you turn your microphone on? Yeah.
it's got so much variance in it because of, especially in the expense side, because of not having enough employees for driving, et cetera. I would rather know what we're doing actual versus actual. The budget means, right now, if you look at it, we're doing great on the budget. We're under 4 by 4 million, but we're actually up $1 million, what was it? $1 million, or 2,300,000 up over last year, even though we have less employees and things like that. I'd rather know actual versus actual, and then I'd like to tie it to the unrestricted part of our capital amounts, so that if we see there's any, if we're taking money out of the unrestricted to cover regular costs, monthly costs. Does that make sense, Michelle, where I'm going? I would rather know how it affects our capital expenditure unrestricted budget if we're not dipping into it, because the budget is just so wild now.
Yeah.
It's a $4 million difference between last year and this year, 21 versus 25.
Yeah, so that's a little bit of a deviation from the report when you talk about the capital, but the capital reserve, I think, is what you're referring to. Well, we don't have an unrestricted capital reserve. We have an operating reserve. And so we wouldn't access our capital reserve for operating expenses without your approval. Our capital.
Doesn't matter. I mean, if you had to get it, if you had to use it, that's what I want to know.
Absolutely, and you would know because we would come to you and ask for that, because we can't use a dollar of it without your approval. Our policy prevents staff from accessing our capital reserve. We do have an operating reserve, but
it's a 350 or something. It's not a big amount, is it?
Well, no, it's I don't know, 5 or 6 million. The operating reserve. So that is what we use to make up our matching funds for the state grant.
Okay.
Not the capital reserve.
Okay. But I still would like to know what we, in advance, not at the time we have to take action on it. We could look at this a little more logically if we get actual versus actual. Budget is meaningless to me. It's because it's so wild and varied because of insurance costs going up dramatically, labor and materials going up dramatically. We're under budget, but not. I'd rather know what we're spending over.
Sure.
The biggest thing that I'm concerned about is like this up to $40,000 expenditure. You know, is this a wise thing to do? Or we just have it just because it's covered by the federal government, okay, let's spend it. I'd like to have a little more control over what we're spending it on, and that we make sure that it's a wise thing to do. I'm not sure we get that with comparing it against budget.
And
Okay, so I definitely hear that you have a preference for the new report. Any feedback from any other board members on that?
I want to bring up again something you're still doing, and that's comparing the previous month or previous years in dollar terms without taking into account inflation. It is a financial error throughout these reports. And it's a simple thing to do. You just look up the monthly, say you're comparing last November to this November, look up last November's rate of inflation and subtract it from this percentage you're always giving here. When inflation's high, that's a substantial difference. When it's now 3 or 4%, it's still significant. So these percentages are not right financially. You're comparing you're ignoring the idea that the money inflates over a year. Just standard business practice, I would think. No need to ask.
But does it make that much difference month to month?
That's kind of irrelevant, Marge. How about the year-to-year comparison?
Well, yeah, I know over a year, but
Well, I don't know what the month-to-month is. You'd have to look and see what the inflation is. Last November, for example, was probably somewhere around 3.5 to 4%. Some years ago, when I brought this up first, it was like 6 or 7% inflation. Big difference. Almost wipes out some of these inflation percentages.
so you, excuse me, so you want these reports to reflect the inflation?
Yeah. It's only appropriate. It's not correct to do it this way that we're doing it. We're comparing uninflated dollars to present dollars.
Spent 2.4 versus 2.1.
Doesn't make any sense. Al, right? You're a businessman, isn't that right?
That's true.
Yeah, okay.
Can we ask Michelle what she might think about this?
Please.
I understand the need to take into account that inflation has happened. One problem, if we just inflated all of the last year actual for a standard inflation rate, is that would not be accurate because some prices went up way more, some prices went less. So it still wouldn't be an accurate complete dollar-to-dollar match. Personally, in my years of accounting, I have seen that some groups will consider what the inflation rate was. We'd be happy to provide that every month. That'd be no problem. But I have never seen an actual prior year inflated to compare to a current year in this situation.
Well, then we should say that it's not, we should say we're not inflating these dollars and comparing them. And
well, I think the standard is what we're doing. Inflating the dollars from the prior year would be not standard to what is normally done, but we could definitely provide the percentage so you could have an idea.
any business does this. Any business. You can't make sense out of what's happening otherwise.
I just know from my 30-some years in accounting and working for a public accounting firm that I've never seen a report monthly like this, a standard report comparing year to year, have inflation factored in.
Well, then we should stop putting the percentage inflation in these reports, or the percentage difference in these reports.
The reports we currently have are a canned report that comes from our outdated financial system that you will hear about a little bit later. And with a new system, we might be able to come up with something that could be tailored to what you're looking for.
Would it be an awful lot of work to, say, take the figures from December and do a report the way Bruce would want to see what the difference might be?
We are definitely willing to do anything the board wants us to do. That would require taking the reports down into Excel, applying the inflation rate. I mean, it would not, we couldn't unfortunately just, hey, add this much inflation and have it print automatically. So we definitely could do that. That would take time away from other things that we're working on, and it's up to the board, whatever priority you'd like to do.
You can always stop putting on the percentage.
Unfortunately, we can't. It's a canned report. It just comes that way.
So one thing that might help, Bruce, I sort of have in my head, and Margaret's kind of the expert on inflation in the room, to be honest, since you're statistics, but, you know, I sort of look at the monthly, tell me what I'm looking at, CPI urban.
There's the CPI-U, which is all urban consumers.
So what I like to do is, looking at, Al's report is actually super useful, but knowing like the last month was, I think, 4.1. So if I look at the 4.38 increase, I say, well, that's a little bit over 4.1, but not much. So that kind of fits. And then you can sort of apply it in your head just as you look down the items. So it is the actual number, it is the actual percentage, but then in your head month to month, kind of look at the inflation numbers and you've got a feel for how far are we year over year. Just a thought.
There's also, may I add, a little footnote here, there's also the CPI-W, which is wage earners. So that covers a much smaller proportion of the population as opposed to, because the urban one covers, retired people, people who aren't working, all kinds of stuff like that. It matters what you put in the denominator of the equation. And I think, as I said once before, I think there are actually 7 different CPIs, but I won't bore you.
Not boring at all.
How about if staff takes a look at, we can talk to our auditing firm and finance offices at other transit agencies, the cities, and we can see what their practice is. I have to say that I agree with Michelle that in my 33 years in the transit industry, I've never heard of another transit agency reporting on a year-to-year basis inflation being calculated into that. I don't think standard accounting principles encourage you to do that, but I'm happy to do a little research on that because I'm just kind of talking off the top of my head and just from other agencies' reports that I've viewed over the years. I don't actually have any data at hand, so we can do a little research on that and get back with you on what the general practices are. Would that be acceptable?
Yeah, just start printing the truth. That's all. I don't know. Accounting principles mean nothing to them. You can't expect us to buy something, and this year, I'm looking at the monthly operating review, revenue.
Turn down your...
39,000. Can you turn your microphone on? Okay. I'm turning it on and off so much. Take monthly operating revenue. The point is that the December one of last year, 939,010, if you were to spend that, try to buy as much with that money today, you would find that it's about 4 or 5%. You'd get about 4 or 5% less for it, the inflation rate. It's a very simple thing to change this figure up here and maybe post another one under it, inflation corrected. Use this and then post another one under it that says inflation correct. Otherwise, this number means nothing. You're comparing apples to oranges.
Well, okay. It does mean something because it still is dollars spent. And while there is an inflationary change or a deflationary change, depending on what the economic circumstances are, it is still dollars out the door. It's dollars spent. And it's not that we're publishing something that is not truthful. It is, that's all the context that it is. And you are asking asking for a different context. It's not a truthful or a not truthful context. It's just different context. So I want to push back a little bit on that. We're not publishing something false or untruthful. It just is dollars out the door and comparing the same month last year, and that there is value to that. You might not find value in it, but there is value in it. So I am happy to look and do some research and get back with you. And at the end of the day, staff will do whatever the board as a whole wants staff to do. And so if you want revisions to the report, when we get software that accommodates revisions, then we will do that. But in the meantime, the two versions of the report that our software gives, Alan has noted that he prefers the new version over the older version. Is there consensus on that or not?
Anybody?
Or does anybody else care?
Just make one more pitch on this. If you just take the pages on 33 and 55, you look at the first line of full adult fares. When you compare on 33, the last year numbers was 28,000, and the budget this year was 33,000. Now, where we got that budget number is it shows a 15% decrease against the budget. It's meaningless. If you could take it against 28 versus 26, we were actually up 4.38% in passenger fares, and that to me is important. So the budget is meaningless unless somebody is wise enough to come up with a number that approaches what the actual numbers are year in, year out, month in, month out. And it's pretty evident that we got a budget of 2.6 this year, and we spent 2.1 last year. That's $5 million. And I just, somewhere we've come up with a number of 2.5 in a budget, and yet we've only spent, we're down 2.2 million, 2.3 million from the budget.
Well, during COVID, the budget has been a little bit helpful because the budget is based on full service. And so comparing to budget does show how far away we are from full service.
I'm sorry, I guess I look at it a whole different way, and that is...
And that's fine. I just wanted to point out that...
I look at the ridership in 2019, and we're talking about achieving it in 2025. We are at 33% off. We're 33% less. So that pre-COVID budget means nothing to me. Post-COVID means nothing to me. It's year to year, and that's how we should figure out a budget more accurately instead of, pulling numbers like 33,000 in passenger fares that I don't know where we came up with that number.
I certainly support what Al's saying. This is not a counting exercise. This is an MTD, and it's a business.
It's a business.
Michelle, does the General Accounting Standards Board have any views on this?
I'd have to look and see what there are any pronouncements for monthly financial statements, but for sure the audit will be actual last year compared to actual this year with no inflation factor. But these monthly statements are for what works for you. Mm-hmm. And so that's what we'll do. Whatever works for you, that's what we'll do. And we could take these current reports, take them out to Excel, reduce that percentage column. It's just that will take longer prep. Right now, sometimes we're fighting to meet the deadline to get the reports on the board. So if we did something like that, we'd either need to work longer, which we could do, or we would just provide the reports at the meeting rather than before the meeting. All different variations, happy to do whatever we can do.
Just walking back, as far as the extra work, is it extra work to prepare what you prepared for Alan this time around, or that can be something you can do regularly? And then, Margaret, if off of your expertise, what would be the most applicable inflation factor on a monthly, but year-to-year basis?
Yeah, I think probably the one that would be most appropriate to our situation is a CPI-U.
Michelle, would it be possible to put the CPI-U just in the corner, say, hey, December of 2023 CPI-U was 4.6, and rather than adjusting all the factors, just stick that in the corner so we can sort of write that on a Sharpie, and then as we go through these numbers, we know, hey, 4.6 is our baseline, so if it's an increase of 5.5, we know there's a real increase there. And that way, it's not a heck of a lot more work for you guys. You just pull it up on Bloomberg and slap it in there. But that way, if we're thinking of inflation adjustment, we've got it right there in front of us.
You just subtract from this percentage the inflation rate.
Exactly. And you can kind of just do that in your head as you read.
Yeah, that's easy enough to do. That we can do. I didn't intend for this to become any kind of contentious discussion. These two reports that we provide in here, accounting provides both of these monthly, and we just would prefer to only include one in the board packet. But if you want both of them in the board packet, we can include both of them in the board packet. But if you're okay with just one of them being in there, I'm simply asking which one you prefer. I think I've heard Alan, Phil, and Bruce say they prefer the new one versus the older one. And so if I'm not hearing any dissension from that, that's what staff is going to do. Are we good?
Okay.
We
can do that. Yeah, we'll add the percentage.
CPI, and there's also monthly inflation rates by the Fed.
Well, the CPI is what calculates the inflation rate. Oh, well, no, well, let's not go into a lecture, but the inflation rate is the CPI. Okay, so have we got this all figured out?
Well,
you know what you're supposed to do or asked to do?
I believe so, and I know Beth and Brittany are going to keep me on track. And so I will just say with that, I will take any questions through page 84, and other than that, I'm done with the report.
Okay. Does the board have any questions for Carl about the remainder of his managing director's report? No? Okay, moving right along. We come to the action items, which the first one is electing officers for the board for the next year. According to the MTD bylaws, the chair and vice chair positions are elected from the Board of Trustees for a one-year term at the first regularly scheduled board meeting after January 1st. As previously approved by the board, Beth Brunk is secretary of the board. I'm assuming we're going to have to change that when Brittany takes over. Beth Brunk, or subsequent substitutes, is the secretary of the board, and Amy Snyder is the treasurer. These terms are indefinite until the board takes action to the contrary. The chair vote goes first before the vice chair vote. I open the floor for nominations for chair. You can nominate yourself or somebody else. Nominations do not need a second. Any nominations? Bruce?
I nominate Al Nudo for vice chair.
We haven't got to the vice chair yet. That comes next.
Sorry.
You have to nominate somebody for the chair. Do you want to nominate somebody for the chair?
Oh.
You're nominating Dick Barnes for chair?
Right.
Okay.
I thought he was.
Are there any further nominations?
I guess I'll second that nomination. Do we need a second?
No, you don't. Okay. So now we will take a vote for chair with a roll call vote. I don't remember we ever did that before. Anyway, all those in favor of Dick Barnes for chair, please say aye.
Aye.
Wait a minute. This is a roll call.
It's a roll
Until
call.
your name is called.
And so this is for Dick Barnes as
This
chair.
is for Dick Barnes as chair of the Board of Trustees.
Okay. Barnes,
Here.
Or well, you should probably say yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Ula,
Yes.
Chaplin.
Yes. Okay. Mr. Chair? We don't need to change seats, do we?
I think you should finish the elections so we can do vice chair.
Oh, okay.
And then, yeah, we are going to ask you two to swap seats just
Swap
because
seats, okay.
Tech Services has the camera set up for you to be for the center to be the chair.
Okay, okay. So Dick has been elected chair of the board. I open the floor for nominations for vice chair. Again, people can nominate themselves or someone else, and the nominations do not need a second.
I nominate Al Nudo for vice chair.
Okay, are there any other nominations? Okay. We'll now vote for vice chair, again with a roll call vote. All those in favor of Alan Nudo for vice chair, please respond by saying yes.
I think it's a roll call.
Yes, roll call.
Okay. And this is vice chair for Alan Nudo.
Yes.
Okay. Barnes,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Present.
Ulo. Yes. Chaplin.
Yes. Okay. So Alan Nudo has been elected as vice chair of the board. So
Do you need these, Margaret?
okay. Yeah, just leave the rest of that stuff
So one less bus ride.
there. True, I hadn't thought about that.
Beth thinks of everything. Okay, thank you. And I guess on the microphone, I'm still Chaplin, so I'm sure that'll get taken care of by their tech folks.
That's switched it. You're good.
Oh,
And I'm Barnes, see?
that was quick.
Oh, now I need.
Okay. Let's move on then. The minutes of the closed session meetings of the board listed on Schedule 1 marked release no longer require confidential treatment and are ordered released. This is part of our semi-annual review of closed session minutes. And the need for confidentiality still exists as to the minutes of the closed session meetings of the board listed on Schedule 2 marked remain confidential. By the way, this is around page 85 if you haven't located that. Then, of course, Schedule 3, the verbatim recordings of the following listed closed session minutes, Schedule 3, all of which are not less than 18 months old, and the written minutes have been approved, are authorized to be destroyed. I would entertain a motion that we
So moved, as written in the
follow 1,
packet.
2, and 3, excuse me. Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, on page 87 of your packet, we'll be looking at the 2024 to 2026 leasing service agreement. And so we have, I believe Ashley is going to help us with this. No, it's going to be okay, it's going to be Michelle Wright, our finance director. Michelle?
So I am Michelle Wright, the Finance Director, And this is a standard thing we've done, as you can tell in the prior trustee action, we've done this. So we were doing it every year for a while, and then we recently went to every 2 years. So it's time for another 2-year term. This is to have a leasing service where, when it makes sense for the district to lease equipment that is reimbursed by DOPE, 65%, we can just have a place ready to go. We're not dependent on whatever leasing the place where we're trying to buy something, what they offer, is have our own leasing group. As you can tell here, we had 2 different proposals, and we are recommending Chelsea at a lease factor of 0.02652. And I'll just take any questions you have from there.
I guess the ship has probably sailed, but given I think that the market is pricing in that there's probably going to be looking towards a falling interest rate environment. Do you think maybe it would be financially beneficial to hold off on locking these rates for 2 years and maybe look at 1-year terms on these when we're looking at an environment where rates might be forecasted to fall?
I do understand that. We don't utilize a lot of leasing. I think our monthly payments are right around the $50,000-ish. So that's, that's a lot of money in my world personally, but it's not, we're not doing millions of dollars through these leases. And
sure, but 5,000 here, 5,000 there, eventually we're talking about real money.
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure. The effort of doing the RFP, there is effort in that, so I think that's one reason we started going to every 2-year to try to get as much as we could for the RFP effort.
I think also, Phil, just so you know, what they have proposed is a lease factor that is based on the prime rate. So as the prime rate descends or increases, then the rate that we pay, in effect is somewhat variable based on the changes in the prime rate.
And the date of the lease.
Sorry?
The dates of the lease, because they're locked for a period, right?
At the initiating point of whatever that lease is.
Chelsea did also offer a 0.27 basis point deduction from the prime rate.
Any other questions or comments? Do I hear a motion to approve the 2024 to 2026 leasing agreement with Chelsea Financial Group, LLC for the period February 1st, 2024 through January 31st, 2026?
So moved.
Moved by
Seconded.
Second by Tomas. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item of business is the Illinois Business Consultants Contract for the Decennial Committee. That's on page 93 of your packet. And who do we have to speak to this?
I just briefly will say we've already discussed this in the previous Decennial Committee, so I'm happy to answer any questions that have occurred to you since that discussion an hour and a half ago, I guess. But otherwise, I think we're good to go. Jamie.
While I was sitting and listening, I just wanted to share a few clarifying points, having been on 4 IBC projects for the Chancellor's Office. One of the questions about can they do this work in this time frame, I had those thoughts on many of the projects we did, and every time they delivered, I was amazed that these students, I couldn't read in this particular contract, but the majority of the IBC projects are done by graduate students, many coming out of the private sector or public sector, coming back for advanced degrees. They're hand-selected for the projects. So depending on the needs, and this is being a unique one, I think that they will try to find some very skilled students to be particularly capable within this area. The other thing too, it was raised about the breadth of the project. I think because of your specific needs, it's really defined, but that's one of the things that they do require is they like to have the scope narrowed so it doesn't get too wide. And the advisors are really great in being realists, saying to the students, you know, you can't do all this within the semester. It's really neat because they provide a midpoint, which gives you an update to where they're going so you can see their progress, along with the monthly meeting or the weekly meetings that the MTD staff will have, you know. And I was amazed because we were always sending more files and data, and they absorbed it all amazingly to really give very defined midpoint. And then their final in November would be their deliverable. And that's what they are trying, you know, with working with MTD in defining what is it that you want. And I think because of the scope of this project's already defined, they will have that deliverable done, you know, for that first part of this, which is the 15,000. And then if you decide to go further, and they could bring other members of the college into further projects depending on what the needs are and what you desire for that extra money if you want to do it. But I would suspect that in November, well, you know, their requirement is in November to give you a deliverable. So, and they're really good at sharing their information and giving you great presentations and analytics to show the data. So I just wanted to share that because it almost seems impossible and you think of these as students, but these are really the cream of the crop of geese. And so I'm excited to see how they do for you. And from what I've seen, don't expect you're going to get nothing but a very high-end deliverable.
Thank you. That's very encouraging. Any other comments or questions on this topic? Okay, so do I hear, let's see. We're all set with the 40,000 Decennial Committee consulting services. Let's move on to the high-speed door replacement contract.
Well, we have to ask for a motion.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Yeah, no, that's all right. So a motion and a second, and then we have to take the vote.
Yep.
I move we approve the contract with Illinois Business Consultants for the Decennial Committee work.
Do we have a second? Bruce?
Second by me.
Okay. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now we can move on to the high-speed door replacement contract. And who's going to, all right.
Good afternoon. I'm Josh Beerbaum, the Maintenance and Facilities Director for the MTD, and I'm going to discuss with you today our project for the replacement of 4 high-speed doors at our maintenance facility at 803 East University Avenue. So currently, if you've been by the facility this time of year, you'll see the big, lovely orange doors on the east side of the building. They're on the west side also, but we're talking about the east side. Those doors are approximately 13 feet high and between 34 and 36 feet wide. And those doors have met their useful life. They service about 150 vehicles that we have in the garage, and they open several hundred times throughout the day. And those doors are beginning to fail. They've met, again, as I said, met the useful life. Some of the biggest issues we have with them are that they're very inefficient, very poor temperature control. They're only rated up to about 20-mile-an-hour wind speeds. So anytime you get past 20 miles an hour, if we don't get those doors put up and the sectional doors down, they start flapping in the wind. And trying to wrestle one of those doors back into the track is a feat in and of itself. So these doors really have not worked well, and again, being at the end of their useful life, the costs have started to increase. One of the curtains currently that needs replaced is about $18,000, and so the ongoing costs are becoming substantial. And so in doing some research, we found that there are high-speed rubber doors that would take their place. The rubber doors, the curtain itself is much more durable. They can withstand winds up to 88 miles an hour, which very rarely do we ever see anything like that. They also reduce our energy costs because the doors don't flex and move in and out as much as the vinyl doors would. There's also reduced maintenance and repair costs, and the rubber curtain itself actually has a lifetime warranty. So if that curtain ever would fail, the curtain is replaced free of charge. This project is in our fiscal year 24 budget, and we do have ARPA funds available for it. Currently, we have $350,000 identified for it. However, we have additional funds that can be allocated to this, so the cost should be fully covered with ARPA funds. We went through an RFP process, and we actually got 3 different vendors to give us proposals for this project. We had an evaluation team that went through several different criteria, which I believe is in the board packet showing how we scored and who scored the highest. And Reliable Door and Dock is who we found to be the most credible. They had the best timeline, and luckily also their costs were, they had the lowest cost for the project. So our recommendation at this time is to execute a contract with Reliable Door and Dock to replace those 4 doors on the east side of the 803 maintenance facility. With that, I'll take any questions.
Do you drive right through these doors? Or do you have to open them in some way to get a bus through?
Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want to drive through them. There's loops in the concrete, so when you get close, when you approach the door, it'll go up automatically, and it's on a timer, and it also has photosensor eyes. So once the door is clear and there's nothing in its path, then the door will close again.
So, and it's fast.
Yes.
And the point is that these are not good for security.
Yeah, they're good for security. They're much better than the vinyl doors. The vinyl doors start to tear on their own without any help. These rubber doors, you can't hardly cut through them or get through them. They're pretty good for security. However, when if we're closed, whether it be a holiday or just if we don't have service, we have sectional doors that we can also close, just like your garage doors at home. But those are not effective to be used daily for the type of use we have. So that's why these high-speed doors are utilized. So these are good for security, but in the events when we're actually closing the building down, we would put those sectional doors down anyway.
Bruce, the primary reason why we have higher speed doors rather than just using those sectional garage doors is that they move more quickly. And so we've got buses coming in and out, but we heat that space, that storage space. And so if you just leave the doors up, or you're using the sectional doors that are very slow to open and then slow to close, we lose all that heat. And so these faster doors allow us to retain more heat and be more efficient and economical.
The question would be why these fold-down doors can't go faster.
Yeah, mostly just because of the sheer weight and moving components in those big sectional doors. When you're talking 34 feet wide and 13 feet tall, they just can't move any faster than that.
Well, they got a motor on them.
They do, but those doors, the sectional doors probably weigh over 3,000 pounds, so you don't want it coming down any faster than it has to.
It's kind of like the elevators here at Illinois Terminal. I mean, there's not, for the weight, there's not enough length to build up speed and then slow down again. And so a 3,000 pound, I'll bet at least 3,000 pound door would be slamming into the concrete if you tried to speed them up anymore, and they'd shatter and break.
Phil?
Another way to think about it, as I know you've been a homeowner for a long time, have you ever had the spring on your garage door break? Well, so the springs are rated for a certain number of life cycles, and I'm, being the crazy guy that I am, when I have to replace, when I order, if I have enough room on the axle at the top, I'll order one that's good for 100,000 cycles. But typical for a home is going to be about 10,000, and maybe for commercial would be 40,000. And that's just because the spring, every time you bend it, eventually it will fail and break. And then you have to replace the spring, the door's out of service. And in this case, it would be a special order spring because these things are about the size of that wall there. So just even if you could make it really fast outside of some kind of obscure like counterweight system, there's no way to get a door that would be capable of the number of cycles that we need without a high-speed door. And then the other thing is, a typical commercial motor is good for, I think maybe a good one would be 25 operations per hour. So at some point, the windings overheat, you'd have to have some sort of a, I guess, actively cooled three-phase motor that could handle that. I mean, it would be just from an engineering perspective, the sectional doors wouldn't really be an option for us.
So the question then is the security of the rubber doors, the new ones. And if I wanted to break in there on a holiday night, it would be very difficult. And I could also, if you close those big doors, I could cut through them too, right? With just about the same ease.
Yeah,
I mean, sorry, Josh, I didn't mean to step on, I guess I did mean to step on you. The sectional doors are metal. And so, I mean, nothing is 100% secure. Somebody could drive a bus through it, I suppose, but they're quite secure. They're very thick and they're metal, which is why they're so heavy and why they're so slow. And those are the doors that we close. If we don't have personnel on site, if it's a holiday, those are the doors that we close.
You don't close them overnight, then?
We operate, our maintenance department operates overnight. We have personnel there.
Okay, so they're not closed at night?
The rubber doors are, but not the, I mean, late at night, once, you know, if it's during the summer and we don't have full campus service, there are a few hours in the middle of the night that we're not operating, and we close the sectional doors. If we're not, if we don't have people there, then the heavy metal sectional doors are closed.
So you could cut through them with a torch?
Or explosives, or,
I wonder why you need another set of doors. But
Nothing is totally secure. Anything else, Margaret?
I wondered, so these are the doors on the east side. Do the doors on the west side need to be replaced too, or are they fit?
The doors on the west side are a little bit newer, so they're in better shape. But at some point, that hypothetically we would. This kind of, I think, gives us a good trial to ensure that these rubber doors are going to work well for us. All the research we've done, we went to a steel mill on the border of Indiana and Illinois to look at a place that had about 50 of these rubber doors installed. Not quite our size, a little bit smaller, but we got to see a lot of the operation. So in theory, looking at them, they seem like they're going to work exceptionally well for us. But this will be a good trial to try them on the east side. But eventually, at some point, I'll probably be asking to do the west side too, yes.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you, Josh. I would entertain a motion then that we approve the contract with Reliable Door and Dock in the amount of $499,190 for the purchase and installation of 4 high-speed rubber doors at the maintenance facility. Do I hear a motion?
Second.
So moved. Bruce seconded my motion.
Okay, Phil moves, Bruce seconds. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Now we'll move on to the ERP, the Enterprise Resource Planning Consulting Service Contract. It's on page 120 of your board packet. And Michelle Wright is back.
I am. Big meeting for me today. So yes, I want to first off, I was earlier talking about new financial software, and I would desperately love new financial software, but this proposal is way more than just financial software. So I just wanted to point on page 121, we list all the different modules that this impacts, and several of them are financial, but maintenance is huge. We also do our customer service complaint complement tracking right now. We were doing everything in FleetNet pretty much that wasn't related to the actual bus routes themselves. And if you'll remember, I have in the history here that we did replace the Paycom, the payroll area with Paycom, and that happened in September of 22. So this is just taking the next step and moving forward. If you read my note, I could sit here a long time and explain what I mean by the instability of FleetNet, and it's not modern, and we're significantly, as we've talked about today, we're just significantly stymied on reporting compared to new modern software. And like I say, Josh could get up here also and tell you some of the problems they've had here recently. The PO module was up and down and not available for days. Thank goodness we have such a wonderful tech services staff. We would really be hurting if Don and Ryan and all of them didn't just jump when there's a problem and figure it out. So we're very blessed with that. But that takes time away from them that they could have been doing something else more productive. Anyway, so this is a little bit of a unique situation. We're wanting help. What this right here now is not to buy the software. This is for giving us help to buy the software. And we would get that from GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association. And we would we're looking into sharing that cost with 3 other districts who also currently have FleetNet. And there's urgency in this because FleetNet has decided they're moving to the cloud. And I also included, they decided they were doing this earlier and that failed. They pulled out of, we were the first ones to try to move and they pulled out because it failed. They now have a different product that they're really kind of heavily encouraging everybody to move to. There will not be the product we have. There will be no support for it at some point very soon. Our current agreement ends with FleetNet in December of '24, so we're already in the year that's going to happen. So because of the urgency to do this, we did do a sole source procurement. GFOA is unique that they have done this type of thing, this consulting for replacing all different kinds of software for governments for the last 20-some years. They have done over 600 of these in the last 25 years and currently have about 40 going. And they already know how governments work. So that's a little bit different than if we went out and tried to, I mean, I know there's lots of public accounting firms that would have no problem helping with the financial part of it, but they would have to get up to speed on the other products we're looking for, whereas GFOA already knows that governments are multifaceted and need to have a lot of needs met. So our proposal here, though, is to share the cost with these 3 other districts or go it alone if we can't come to agreement with the other districts. So far, the other districts are, I think, thrilled, would not be too short of a explanation, and very excited about let's join in and do this together. There's a lot of benefits that come from that. We would have intergovernmental agreements with all of them to make sure, okay, who's paying for what and how are we going to do that. But if for some reason that fell apart, we would like you to approve that we could do either one. Either we partner with these people, or if that doesn't work out for some reason, we go on our own. So that's my brief summary of where we are, and I'll take questions.
And if I can just real quickly speak to this aspect of the other transit agencies. We do have verbal commitment from all 3 of the other transit agencies to participate. So with us, that'd be the 4 total. They verbally committed to it. We just don't have signed agreements with them yet. Not anticipating any problems with getting that. We're all in the same situation. We all currently use the FleetNet product, and we all are interested in this, and they have verbally committed. So they know that they would be paying 1/4 of the total cost, and so we just actually have to do the paperwork. That's all.
It may not be exactly 1/4 depending on who does what, but it'll be, yeah, it'll be prorated based.
How much are we saving by partnering with the other 3 agencies? Ballpark, maybe?
So the base amounts, the amounts we're asking for approval are not to exceed amounts, simply because we don't want to delay the project by coming back, here's something that popped up we weren't aware of. But the base amounts for the service, if we all share, is $230, and the base amount, if we go on our own, is $141. And part of the reason it's not just a quarter of that cost is because no matter how many people participate in several of these things, it's basically going to take about the same amount of time. A recent example MTD was involved with that was sort of like that was back in October of '21, where we did the Riding on Sunshine event to kick off hydrogen. Some of the vendors helped sponsor that event, and everybody shared in it, whereas if we'd just done the event on our own, it would have cost us more because just having the event was going to cost a certain amount. So that's what I kind of relate this to. So that's why it's not, exactly 1/4 of the cost.
But for MTD, we're talking about if we go alone, it's $230,000, and with the other 3 agencies, it will be. It's not. Michelle is right. It's not exactly a quarter because one of the agencies isn't going to go all the way. They only want to participate like 3/4 of the project. So without getting too bogged down in that, we'll be paying roughly $75,000 or $80,000 ish, and that instead of $230,000. So that's the savings. I think that's what you were asking, right?
Well, the $230 is for all 4 districts, and it's the $141 if we went by ourselves.
Oh, sorry. Yeah. So it'd be $140 if we're on our own, and it's like $75 or $80 because the other agencies are participating. Thank you.
Any other questions? Go ahead, Margaret.
Well, so you want us to approve both of these contracts or just the first one?
I would like the proposal to be that the managing director is able to make a choice. Either we're going to go with the shared contract or go on our own.
Okay.
Which looking very much like we're going to go with the shared contract, but just so we don't have to come back again and delay the project further, I'd just like to get both options.
Phil?
Pretty sure I know the answer to a couple of these. Have we used GOFA before for anything?
We haven't used them in the consulting capacity like this, but they are when we had the earlier discussion about financial statements, that's the place I'm going to go to see what they know. There's a forum. The National GFOA has a forum of different accounting people, and then there's an Illinois GFOA that Nate and I regularly take classes from, and I'm going to put those comments up to that whole group and see what they say about what they do. But no, they're the standard of, they even have a presentation for excellence in financial reporting, that they have criteria, and that someday when we're having our new financial system and it's all going great, I'd love to aim for that. But no, they are a place to go.
Fantastic. I'm assuming they don't take commissions on any sales that they get?
We didn't ask that question. I would not think so, though. I mean, it would hard to be independent and help with these if they were doing that.
Well, yeah, that might be worth asking.
Sure.
And then I guess, do you have a ballpark of what we typically spend per year on FleetNet? Just so we've got an idea of how much capital we're steering here with this decision.
Well, and Nate Warman, the comptroller, has kind of taken the lead on some of the items here, so I'll let him jump in if I'm way off, Nate. Please do. But the 5-year agreement we signed with FleetNet, that was for the existing product now that is housed
disconnected, yeah,
on our property, and that is, I want to say, about $28,000 or $30,000 a year, and you get what you pay for. And their new product, I think, is going to be, was it $80,000 a year?
And again, if it's a pain in the butt and we have to hire 3 or 4 staff members to run it additionally, or pay overtime, these numbers can add up really fast.
I have low confidence in the new system because we tried to do their other system and it didn't work, and we were like, hey, we're here, we're ready to do it, and they pulled out. Now, several other districts, I think, have switched to it, so I haven't been involved with that, but I'm fearful of it.
Very good.
Alan?
Yeah, reading through this, they do individual interviews with each company, each MTD, and so it's safe to say that different software programs may be selected for each one?
I would think that would be...
In other words, we don't have to buy one that doesn't necessarily fit just us.
Right. This, the big goal of this is they're going to help us do an RFP. That's going to be a huge ask for all these different modules, but we will be able to, we don't need payroll. So the people who need payroll, they will work on that RFP. And from all the demos that are done, I don't know why we couldn't all pick something different. It would be nice, I guess, for continuing to be able to help each other if we all did pick the same thing.
Yeah.
But we will see. We already have Paycom, but we're not switching that.
I would like to note also, and I'm sorry I didn't mention this at the get-go, we do have the representative from GFOA on Zoom right now. And so, Phil, your question about commission, my guess is if Tech Services brought him up. There he is. Hi, Mike. Mike can probably answer that right now.
Yeah, we don't take commissions from any software vendors. We are actually a 501c3 nonprofit organization. We provide our consulting services kind of under that umbrella.
Excellent, thank you.
Meeting of the Board of Trustees will be Wednesday, February 28th, 3 p.m. right here at the Illinois Terminal. We do, however, have a closed session that we need to take care of a couple of items. So I need a motion that we would adjourn to closed session to consider employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a public official, followed by adjournment. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. We'll take a brief 1 to 2 minute break.
We need a roll call.
A roll call on this one. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Chaplin?
Yes.
Delgado?
Yes.
Vasella?
Yes.
Hannan?
Yes.
Nudo?
Yes?
Ula?
Yes.
And Barnes.
Yes.
There wasn't any mention of this